All right, well, we're going to get going. So we're kind of outnumbered today in terms of affiliates. So maybe that's the sign. If everybody shows up after you guys are done, then that's going to be my cue. That it's not me, it's you. So anyway, anything, any wins or successes, anything exciting happening? Rob?
Yeah, I got a call from the CL yesterday. He wants to put some home for sale.
Awesome. So some from SOI putting their home
so,
for sale. Nice.
We're going to arrange a time to get selected contract.
Nice.
Learn more about the property
Awesome.
and help get it sold.
Awesome. Good job. Congratulations. Cool. Good. Great.
Me and my wife on our first team closing.
Nice. Congratulations. What was it at SOI or what?
Or
the client
actually we got it
from door knocking. Nice. The listing? Or buyer?
No, he was just a buyer.
Just a buyer.
Well, but we have a couple on contract right now.
Nice. Good job. From door knocking or as well? Or?
It's one of them is
Door knocking. Nice. Good job. Awesome. Good. All right. What do you got, Gene? Something?
No.
Okay.
Well, yeah, it's not anything big other than the fact that I'm more committed myself to this. I've kind of been just dragging my feet. I was just telling Josh, I feel like I'm still so new at this. I've been afraid to make the approach to strangers. And none of my friends are ready yet. None of my SOI are ready to do anything. Several of them have said, yeah, down the road, but not right now. So I sent out an accountability contract to Katie in Centerville, and I said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And it's a list of a whole load of stuff
Good.
that I've committed to do next week to get myself to
Good.
get here. So
Awesome.
that's my success story.
Awesome. Good job. No, that's great. That's just it. When I say wins or successes, stuff like that actually is awesome. I love hearing things like that. It doesn't have to just be in terms of deals, although we like to hear about those too. But so awesome. Good job. Well, good. Any specific questions? Anything you want me to help you with before we have some other?
A couple of weeks ago, you mentioned that you were tossing the idea around of setting up the training for the 12 hours that the division requires. Has anything come of that?
Yes. So actually, I've figured out how I'm going to do it now.
Okay.
What I haven't figured out is exactly how I'm going to make it happen, if that makes sense. So here, what I'm going to do basically is essentially part of where the struggle for me has been coming on the 12-hour new agent class is the stuff that we have to cover in the 12-hour new agent class is basically the buyer agency contract, the seller contract, which we've already got classes that we do that for. And that's where I've been struggling because I'm like, what I didn't want to do is have you guys like come sit through the 2-hour class and then of each of those, and then we get into the 12-hour new agent class and it's the exact same thing again. So here's what I think I'm going to do actually is we'll take, and I'm going to, this next go around, I think what I'll do is schedule the classes so that we'll do the buyer packet like on a Tuesday, for example, seller packet on a Thursday, then REBC workshop on the next Tuesday, and CMA the next Thursday, and then the next Tuesday. I'll have to create one more class in order for us to do that, so I'll have to add one more class to the rotation. That'll be one other 2-hour class. So because essentially what happens on the 12-hour new agent class, on any CE classes, they allow for a 10-minute break for every hour. So really a 1-hour CE class really has to be 50 minutes long. Does that make sense? And so for the 12-hour new agent class, really 12 hours is 5 classes. 5 2-hour classes would be 10 hours, which would essentially then give us what we need for the 12 hours. Does that make sense? Since we don't take a break or anything, we'd do the 2 hours straight each of those 5 times, which would be 10 hours, but really that's sufficient for the 12 hours. Does that make sense? So I think what I'm going to do is I'll put those in, and then we'll do that Tuesday, Thursday, Tuesday, Thursday, Tuesday. And what I will do is after that Tuesday class, give everyone credit for the 12-hour new agent class. But you have to have attended live, which, so since we're streaming and recording this, you have to be live. You can't watch it online and then have to give credit for it. So anyway.
The reason I'm asking is they're mentioning it.
Well, how long have you had your license?
I got it in May.
Oh, yeah, so you're fine, because you still, I mean, it just has to be within the first 2 years, but I would say, my recommendation is, do it sooner than later. The sooner you go through it, the better off it is, just because what I have found, as I've taught the 12-hour new agent class now for like 5 years, and what I've found is the people who wait to go do it are like bored to death, versus if you're new and you're doing it, they tend to enjoy it, so, probably like all my classes. So, cool, good. Any other questions?
I guess, for those of us that are newer, what kind of questions should we ask that we don't know? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
well, like,
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know to ask?
That's
right.
Yeah. Good question, I don't know, I'll have to think about that. That's a great question.
I was going to say, for some individuals, like was mentioned over here, is, if you're reluctant on reaching out to your SOI, if there are friends, family, and other associates maybe belong to an organization you're concerned about reaching out to them, I'm with Citywide, and I work with agents and reach out to their SOI on their behalf. And we do it in a sensitive way, we do it in a prudent way. If there's some reluctance there, just let us know, because all of your efforts out there are based upon, and productivity effectively is reaching out and trying to get engagement. And we've had a lot of experience with that, and so if we can help you in that regard, we're out making outbound calls, 35, 40, sometimes 50 calls a day. And so if you feel like you can benefit from that, just come talk to me. I'm happy to do it. We've got a great system set up. I work closely with Steve over here. He gets down in the weeds of loan processing. I'm on the side of outreach, and between us and partner up with a couple other individuals, we're able to basically bring about some success on your behalf. We catalog them all to your name, and it works out really, really well. If that can be of help, just let me know.
Okay, awesome. All right.
one more thing.
Okay.
So I know that, like, it kind of depends on the person, but when you go door knocking and whatnot, how often, like, a rule of thumb, would you follow on? Because I feel like there's certain people that have been following up with too much, and maybe turn them off, feel like they're being loved. But I know you don't want to just, like, not call them. Is there like a rule of thumb on that?
Well, there's not necessarily a rule of thumb, other than I would say, to me, it depends. If they're further out, meaning they're a long time before they're going to be doing something, then I would say you stretch out the follow-up with them. Versus if somebody's saying, in the next couple of months. So probably the rule of thumb I would say to think of is whatever the time frame they tell you, you can cut it in half is typically what will happen. So if somebody says in the next year, we're thinking about in a year from now, then I would say plan on it's probably going to happen in 6 months. So you would want to treat them more like they're going to be 6 months out. So somebody who says, in the next couple of months, yeah, you would want to be following up with them probably every couple of weeks, versus somebody who's a year out, once a month might be sufficient to begin with. But I would say early on, what you want to do is have more contact. Like during that first, meaning like let's say you meet somebody door knocking, I would think a great thing to do is like that night send them a handwritten note of, hey, it was great to meet you today, talk about blah, 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 whatever, and send them a handwritten note in the mail. And then I would say following up, find an excuse of some reason to call them again about a week later, or to drop by, some type form of contact with them. Because here's what I've found, like especially from door knocking, if you just wait a whole month to follow up with them, what happens is a month later they don't even remember talking to you, and you call them and they're like, "Who are you? Remember I knocked on your door?" And no, not really. So that's why I would say send them a card, handwritten note, throw one of your business cards in it, find some type of an excuse a week later or something to send them an article or drop by. Hey, I've read this article, thought you might be interested in it. Something that's not like in their face, but at least so that then after that kind of once a month you could stay in touch. And then as you start to get closer to whatever their time frame is, you shorten it down.
So if you went out door knocking, you did a CMA for somebody, and they were like, "We need to think about it," and you call them, and they kind of stop answering calls or whatever, would you just let it go, or would you keep it?
Well, yes, I would still try to keep following up. But I probably would spread it out then to a little bit less often. Sound good?
Politely persistent is what you're looking
Exactly. Okay, good. Steve, you ready?
I'm ready.
Looks like Steve's got some fun stuff for us today. So
My foot just fell asleep, so.
nice.
All right.
When he
Who's
had
here?
that blank there, one day I was standing and somebody said blank was right across the.
I'm Steve, the Citywide Home Loans, for those of you that are new. So, today, we only have a few minutes, but last time we did this, I gave out candy, but today,
Cash.
we've got some cash. But we're gonna stay on this row. So, who's up for $2?
Okay, Chris. I guess the rest of these guys don't.
So, which category do you want?
Income.
I like this.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what are the circumstances?
Mhm. The amount of income? I'm not quite sure, but I know that we had somebody who was going through a lender had part-time income.
I'm going to give it to you anyways. But with FHA, as long as they've had it for 2 years, and with USDA, as long as we'll continue. USDA is a little more flexible.
So what if it's full-time? Is it a year or is it still?
If it's full-time income, they just have to have a 2-year history, and it needs to be able to continue. But it's part-time income that gets a little iffy.
I guess the key term would be consistency, right? As long as
It's just sustainable, it's gonna be sustainable, verifiable.
So what if they have a job transfer? How long of a lapse? Like,
So on a job transfer, on regular, like on FHA loan, 1 month, as long as they've had consistent earnings in the past. Same thing with USDA. Now that can change with, like, if it's a commission only job, if it's maybe they drive truck and it's variable, those things can impact how we calculate their income. The general rule of thumb is they need to have a 2-year work history, not necessarily at the same job. FHA allows for up to 3 job changes per year, as long as they're employed for a 2-year history. Does that make sense?
yeah, so they could essentially be off for 90 days of the year. Transferring jobs, kind of. Is that
They can't have leave. I've had clients that have had leave of absences, or maybe they went to school. So maybe they had 1 year of school. We counted the year before their schooling, and maybe they went back into the workforce. But we had a full year after their schooling. As long as we have the 2-year work history, there are legitimate reasons you could, maybe it's a stay-at-home mom. Maybe a mom decides to have a baby and she wants to be home for the first year. Well, that's not going, she doesn't have to work for 2 full years after that if she's been working prior to leaving the workforce.
I'm having a total brain cramp right now. I can't think of what is it called when you get laid off and you still have income? Does that count?
Severance?
Most likely it's not
It's
going
not
to count.
severance, but it's
Unemployment.
unemployment.
Yeah.
Does unemployment count?
Yeah.
So it's just
Now, if they became unemployed and were put on disability, and that disability was going to last for at least the next 3 years, we could. So we only have time for one. I guess we'll do one more. Anyway,
I'll do credit.
what is the lowest score either will accept, and what percentage of the purchase price does a borrower need to put down? So this is both for USDA and FHA.
So,
It's a trick question.
you know, FHA will accept a 500, I think FHA will accept a 500 credit score with 10% down. I don't remember.
Heck yeah.
Good job.
Good job. And how about
That's
USDA?
worth
I don't
$100.
remember.
Yeah.
I'll take that. I don't remember USDA.
So there you go, 500 to 579 with 10% down. And USDA restricted by lenders to 620, zero down in all USDA loans. All right. Turns out
Cool, awesome, okay, cool. So, also we've got, sorry, did I get right in your picture?
Yeah, you're fine.
You can do it again if you want. Alright, so, any title questions? We've got Joe with, Vanguard Title here as well, any title? Alright, well, know that he's here to help and support and answer any questions. So, and then last, before we jump into the presentation stuff, Josh Kwai is here with American Home Shield. So,
Okay, cool, yeah. You guys, we're gonna do a 2-minute tip pretty much every once a week, I think, is what we're doing, so just wanna hand those back.
Absolutely.
So from what I'm hearing, I wanna do a tip on basically your verbiage when you're when you're knocking on doors, prospects. So when you're out prospecting, the warranty can be a useful tool. You wouldn't think that it would be, but our warranty product, I think we talked last time about listing coverage. So you can actually use listing coverage to your advantage, because listing coverage for you as a real estate agent, you can provide it to your sellers and it's no obligation. So a lot of people say it's free, but really it's no obligation. What that means is during the listing period, if they use the warranty, they pay for the service fee and we'll do work. So they have a limit of $2,000, which is by far the highest in the industry. And that's our cost. So we can replace a furnace, we can replace an AC, we can do water heater, and all they pay is a service fee, which is pretty awesome. And when they close, there's a $75 fee that gets added on for listing coverage. But that's only if they close, and that's only if they close with an American Home Shield home warranty or Century 21 home protection plan administered by American Home Shield. So the verbiage that I'm getting, I got feedback from a couple top producers yesterday that were saying, well, whenever I am in a listing presentation, I tell my future clients that if they list with me, I give them a home warranty for the duration of the listing period. And I was like, well, that's pretty awesome. You know, if I'm debating if you're going to be my agent or not, and you're going to give me a warranty for the duration of the listing period, okay, that's a plus. Chalk up a yes, I like that, you know, in your presentation. Or I liked what Russ was saying. This is a great follow-up tool a week later to say, email them a PDF or send them this and say, oh yeah, by the way, if you list, you know, with my listings, I give you this product. And it's the Shield Essential product. So it's the one in the back here that says seller's coverage. So it's all your major systems. It's your furnace, your AC, your water heater, your plumbing, and your electrical. Because you know that there's no fee due unless it closes, which typically means you're getting a commission. You know, so a lot of these experienced top producing agents say, if this helps me get my listing, yes, I will pay $75.
So they're just offering to pay the $75.
Just the $75. And then it opens the door to talk about, well, what is a warranty? Yes, 99% of buyers are going to ask you for a home warranty. You know, so then you can talk to them about what it is, how much it's going to cost. But that listing period, offer it. I mean, it opens the door to a different dialogue that you're going to be their agent. And so this is a little teeny step, great follow-up tool to use for those prospecting clients that definitely makes you stand out because not everybody's doing this. And I'd even go so far as say maybe 10% of agents are doing this, you know, consistently. And this is a free tool. Like literally it's, well, I got stuck on saying free. It's no obligation. It's no obligation to you. And it's a great tool to where if they do use the service, if you get their water heater replaced or their furnace or their AC, even if the home doesn't sell, like let's say they take it off the market, man, believe me, you're going to stick out in their eyes and they're probably going to use you or refer you to their friends because you're looking out for their best interest. But yeah, pretty good. Okay, that's it. That's your 2-minute tip. Any questions?
Remind me what the service fee was if they do use it.
Yeah, so the service fee is $75, and that's per. So if you have
So both of them are 75.
Both of them are-
The cost of the policy and the service.
yeah,
Okay.
Well, no, the cost of the,
the cost-
yeah, sorry, for the seller, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so the cost, you know, at closing, 4 sellers covered 75, service fee, and that's per contractor. So if you have 2 electrical issues, it's only 1 contractor. But if you have a plumbing and an electrical, you know, that'd be 2 contractors, 2 $75 service fees
So at closing, it's $75
added on
Added on.
to
to
the
the agent for providing it free, and then $75 for the seller.
No, that's
No.
where I was, that's where I was
Oh.
jumping in, that's what I thought the question was, is no, the seller's gonna pay whatever plan they choose, so the essential was what, 3 something?
Yeah, so what you do is the buyer's typically gonna ask for a home warranty. I recommend the Shield Plus, which is $465, just because it gives them washer, dryer, refrigerator. It's a really good policy. And so this is the most popular is Shield Plus, and that's what the sellers are most likely gonna pay at closing. And so that's what you wanna talk to them is, you know, buyers are gonna come in and say, sellers to pay home warranty. It's usually chosen by the buyer, but I would always recommend stick with this policy because there's advantages for that buyer. There's actually a lot of advantages for the buyer, which maybe next week we do a tip on that, kind of the carryover. But yeah.
So real quick, if you have, so you have a listing and you cover this as the agent, and the buyer wants to go with a different company, what does that do to the agent? You still paying $75?
Nope. You don't even pay the 75. So that's why it's a huge advantage for. So that's one of the advantages, and that's why American Home Shield's been around in the business the longest, is because really we view you as a partner, and we know that the more you use this, that you're going to see advantages, and you're probably eventually down the road going to say, just stick with American Home Shield, they'll take care of you.
Especially like when I'm representing a buyer, I always wanna stick with making sure that it's, cause with your buyer, if you get a phone call from the buyer and they're upset for whatever reason about the home warranty company, I like the fact that I know I can get on the phone with Josh and go, alright, help me fix this.
Yeah.
You know, versus if it's some other company that I have 0 relationship with, it's like, well, you know, I don't say this out loud, but I'm like, dang, I should have used American Home Shield, cause then I could have called Josh and said, help me figure out how to make this work, you know?
And you guys, we have a great partnership. Century 21 is like, obviously, we have co-branded, you know, marketing material. It's easier for me to help you out because you're such a partner company. So if you ever have any questions, you're not expected to be the warranty expert, call me. Jason, who's up north? Who's in the center row? Okay, so you guys will be, I'll be your rep. Everybody else will have Jason, and I'll make sure he reaches out, you know, and you have his info. But yeah, that's it. We'll
Okay,
be in next
awesome.
week too.
Thanks. Alright. So will you guys all scoot up since we are so few in numbers? Let's like, I mean, you don't have to be on the front row if you don't want to, but at least, you know, the first couple of rows, so.
Say, I got here early so I can have this.
I know, that's right, yeah, you can stay there, so. Anyway, so here, what we're gonna get in and talk about, presentations today. And, as we do that, I guess just part of where I want to start in terms of presentations is, what is your number one skill as an agent? Meaning, what's the number one skill really that you need to have mastered to be really successful in this business? What thoughts do you have on that?
Communication.
Yeah, good, exactly. That's exactly what I'd say. Is communication is going to be your number one skill that you've got to have mastered. And one of the things that we teach here at Century 21 that's going to be different, really, honestly, in my 20 years, I have never heard it spoken of and spent a majority of my time at a different company, and I never once heard anybody ever talk about, number one, in terms of just communication. But really, if you think about it, your job as an agent is to be a leader. And what is leadership? John Maxwell says leadership is nothing more and nothing less than influence. So your number one job as an agent is to be a leader. And the reason we say that is because leadership is nothing more and nothing less than just influence. And so as you go out and are on presentations, and so today we're going to talk mostly about listing presentations, but really the process is going to be the same either way. So think of it this way as we go through it. A lot of times on that needs analysis class that we do, we spend a lot of time on that really talking about really a buyer presentation. So today is kind of to now incorporate in on the listing side of presentations. But your job really is to go out and influence people to make the right decision for them, whatever that is, okay? So one of the things that you will hear George say, if you haven't heard him talk about it yet, but really, sometimes people worry that like we're trying to go out and manipulate somebody, and we don't want to do that. That's not what it's about, but we want to go help. And so if you think about it, coming back to this whole idea of influence, if your job is to go be a leader and to influence people, we have to have the right intent. As long as you have the right intent behind it, your intention is really the difference between going out and helping somebody or somebody that goes out then and is trying to manipulate people to go and do things. The manipulation is for a bad intention, right? Versus for us, we want to go out and have this influence on people to help them accomplish whatever it is that they want, okay? So it all starts with making sure we understand that piece of it is your job is to be a leader. The number one skill a leader has is communication. And so we've got to make sure that we really are constantly working on it. One of the other things I love that Jim Rohn says is you should work harder on yourself than you do at your job. And if you will do that, if you'll spend the time working on yourself, making sure, number one, you have the right intentions, but that you are communicating in such a way that it influences people to help them get what it is that they want. Does that make sense? So one of the things actually that I even still in my own mind have a little bit of a struggle with is, could you go and get somebody to do something they don't want to do?
It's
Yeah.
mom's job.
Okay, good. So yes, thank you for bringing that up, because that's ultimately how I would want to say it is now. Again, keeping in mind, don't forget where I'm talking about this intention, the intention of helping people get what it is that they want. But yeah, when you bring up mom's job, really, that's just it. A mom's job is to influence their kids to do the right things, right, for the right reasons, even though they may not necessarily want to do it. That's what leadership is about. Now, why I say I have a little bit of a struggle in my head on this is I know of an agent that we have here at this company that I see him trying to influence people to go and make a decision that they don't want to make, which is to sell their home, with people that we probably shouldn't be trying to do that. So the key, I guess, why I bring that up is it's all back to helping people get what it is they want. Okay? Now, sometimes do they know what they want? Maybe not. And so that's where we have to help them along the way. Okay? So with that kind of as our foundation for what we're going to talk about today, as we get into a presentation specifically, well, really any presentation, but we're going to get more specific to the listing presentation. As we go through and talk about this, there's really two pieces to this, okay? So there would be two pieces to our presentation. The first thing that we have got to do as we are out on a presentation, the very first thing is we've got to get them to choose me. So your first objective when you go out on really any presentation, but specifically again, a listing presentation, what we're going to talk about, the first thing you've got to do is get them to first choose you. Then once they have chosen you, well, let me stop for a minute. When I say choose you, what do I mean by that?
You gotta sell yourself.
Okay, good. And what were you going to say?
The same thing.
Okay. Yeah, so first thing is we've got to sell ourselves in terms of getting them to choose me, to getting them to say, okay, this is the person I want to use, right? So the first thing is choose me. Then after that, what's the next step?
Help them get what they want.
Okay. So there's two pieces of this. First thing we got to get them to do is to choose me as their agent. Okay, so before anything else, they've got to be comfortable in wanting to choose me. After that, together, we'll choose the price. So keeping that in mind as you go out on these presentations, as you go on presentations and you are presenting to people, your first objective is I got to get them to choose me first. Then once they've chosen me, then together we can work on the price. Because does it make sense that the price doesn't really matter if you don't think I'm the right agent? Meaning, if they don't think you are the right agent, does it matter what price you think they should sell the home for or what commission you're going to charge? Meaning, like let's say that if you knew I was not the guy for whatever reason, you knew I was not the agent you wanted to use, but I told you, Chris, that not only am I going to do it for free, I'll pay you if you let me sell your home. I'll pay you $500 to let me sell your home. If you don't think I can do the job, though, would you want to do that deal?
Yeah.
You would?
Yeah, if you're gonna pay me. Yeah. Well, maybe not, I don't know.
Well, because stop and think about it for a minute. If you want, what you really needed was to get your home sold. And it's not going to get sold by using me.
Yeah.
But I'm going to pay you $500 to not get your home sold. Would you use me? Why? Because what you want is your home. So, I mean, that's a little bit of an extreme, right? Because nobody's going to do that. But if I just said, look, I'll do it for free, but I'm not going to be able to get your home sold, would you choose me? So does that make sense? The first thing we got to get figured out is, am I the right person? Now, a lot of times what I see, though, is agents will want to jump into price, commission, all of those things before the client has decided you are the one. Now, once you decide I'm the guy or the gal, whatever the case may be, to help them get their home sold, then we can work on a price. But until we have this piece down, this doesn't matter. Everybody good? Go ahead, Pat.
When we were selling our house, I wanted to get 3 agents, and I wanted to know how much they thought my house was worth. So I was never gonna choose them, either dependent on their choice, but I wanted that information.
Okay. So, well, go ahead. What's the question? Are you just saying that you're thinking that wouldn't have worked for you?
Yeah, how does that work in your scheme?
Okay, yeah, great question. So because yes, sometimes if what they are concerned with is what's the price, I guess how I would have answered it for you is I would have said, does it matter what price I think your home is worth if you don't think I know what I'm doing, you don't trust me? Why?
Information. I'm a science person. I want all the information. I've said 3 or 4 agents I will interview. I want that expert opinion separate from choose me.
Okay. So here's the challenge that I have for that. So I totally can appreciate where you're coming from, but for me as an agent, here's why I struggle with that is because for me personally, which actually I'm having another thought as I'm saying this, but for me personally, what I don't want to do, let me back up. When you go to the doctor, what are you paying the doctor for?
His expertise.
Yeah, essentially when you go to the doctor, the reason they can charge what they can charge is why? Because of what they know, right? And so a little bit for me, I guess that's where I struggle. I totally understand where you're coming from, but for me where I struggle on it is really what we are getting paid for is our expertise. I really do believe, like, anybody can throw the home on the market. I mean, there's a reason that people are out there saying, give me $295 and I'll put your home on the MLS. But if that's what sold a home, there would be no homes that ever expired. I mean, think about that for a minute. Think how good our real estate market is. What do you know or have you heard in terms of, like, you get a listing that's under $250,000 and what's happening? It's gone, right? Yet, I could probably go right now and jump on the MLS, we aren't going to do it, and pull up listings that are under $250 that are expiring. Why would that happen? Yeah, I mean, ultimately, if just putting it on the MLS sold homes, then all of us would only be charging a couple $100, and that's what it would do. So for me, keep that in mind. What I feel like is where we earn our money is not getting an offer. I mean, a little bit is getting an offer, but really the majority of it, I feel like, is keeping that deal to go through all the way to a successful closing. Because there are so many times that things can happen along the way where people end up losing the money. A lot of times when a seller feels like, well, I just want whoever's going to charge me the lowest commission, well, then you're probably going to walk away with the least amount of money too, because that same person is not going to then negotiate for you during that time. So back to this. So for me, I still feel like a little bit, now I would never come right out and say, I'm not going to come to your house, Pat, and say, first thing is you got to choose me and then together we'll work on the price. But I would be saying to you as I come out, and then we're going to get into this, before we get into that, I need to first understand what you're trying to accomplish. And then from there we would start into this process, which we're going to go into here. So I think one of two things would have happened. So this is where my other thought was going. Either one, I would have been able to take you through it and to get to a point of saying to you, we'll go through and talk about this, but I first just have to get, meaning like after we've talked for a little while and you started saying to me, I just want to know the price, I just want to know the price, I would have then been saying, well, let's first make sure that you're comfortable with everything else that we offer and what we do and those type of things. Because if you're not, then it doesn't matter. Now, I'm not saying I wouldn't have answered your question if I had been the agent out there, but if all you were stuck on was give me the price, give me the price, give me the price, what would have happened is I would have given you a pretty vague answer. And when I say vague, meaning your type of home in this area is probably going to sell between here and here. Versus if you had said, yes, I feel like you're the right one, and if we can come together on a price, then you would list with me, then I'll give you everything. Does that make sense? Because
everything being the market.
I would have done all the CMA and stuff. Because
you would also have done all the CMA stuff, knowing you were coming, hoping to get a listing.
Mm-hmm.
But you would not have given me that information.
No.
Interesting.
So but you wouldn't have known that I wasn't giving it to you, because I would have given to you kind of like, here's in this area, here's kind of the ball. Versus once we get to here, I would have gotten into the details of, let me show you why and how I would have gotten into that. Only because I just feel like that's what I'm being paid for, is those type of things. And I've seen too many times where I come and show up and I give you all that information and then you go for sale by owner. Or you go list with Chris because he was going to do it cheaper, but you liked all my research that I did, if that makes sense. So again, let me kind of sum this up. At the end of the day, for me, what?
You're getting paid for your knowledge.
Yeah. And so at the end of the day, though, if I would have walked out of your house not with a listing and not having all that, that'd be okay. Because here's the thing. One of the things that, and you'll hear me say this a lot if you haven't already, one of the things that I feel like is not every buyer or seller out there is your buyer or seller. Meaning, like, you and I may not ever have worked together because of any number of reasons. You don't like the fact that that I still have hair. You don't like the fact that Chris doesn't have. I mean, whatever it is, you don't like the. Do you go by Chris or Christopher?
I go by Chris.
Okay. Or you don't like the fact that Chris wears glasses, or that Rob wears glasses and shaves his head. I mean, who knows? It doesn't matter though. But so my point being, work with your clients and leave everyone else's alone. And when I say leave everyone else's alone, the only way we're gonna find out is taking them through some of this process, because there are gonna be times when I may go out and you and I just don't click and it's not gonna work, and that's totally fine, but Annika shows up and you love her and you wanna list with her, and that's okay. So don't be attached to like the fact that you go on a presentation and you don't get it, and Annika walks in right after and gets it. It may not have been, you may have done everything just right, it's just for whatever reason, you two didn't jive and it wasn't gonna work. I mean, not everybody is gonna be your client, and that's okay with me. So that's kind of where I guess I'm going with it is now, depending on where you're at in your career, you may have a little bit different opinion of that, of, you know what, I wanna go out and I'm gonna give them the information, and that's okay too. But as you get more and more successful, the more I'm like, I'm not sure that I wanna give you the whole ball of wax, because that's where I feel like my expertise is. So, I don't know, I guess my point is, I don't know if you would have liked it or not, but I would have been okay with that, if it didn't work. Does that make sense? So, and we'll come back to that in a minute. So for me, think of it in terms of when you're going out on these presentations, what you're trying to do is first get them to choose you, then together we choose the price. And the reason I emphasize that so much is because too many agents walk out and give the price, and then she makes the decision solely on the price. And if she makes that decision solely on the price and I wasn't the highest price, then what? I mean, I guess tell us, how did you end up, which agent did you had 3?
Yeah.
And which one did you choose? The highest priced or no? The one who said
No, like I said, I'm a science person. I
Okay.
was collecting the information,
Okay.
you know, what's going on. It happened to be at the bottom of the market.
Okay.
I went with a woman that her kids were the same age as my kids, and she had signs all over Illegal
Okay.
Night.
And what price? Her price or one of the other agents' price?
It was sort of my price, which
Oh,
may have
interesting.
come from
Yeah,
all
putting it
the,
all together.
she wanted to put it higher. I don't know.
The agent wanted it higher than what you did? Wow, that's interesting. Usually that doesn't happen, so that's great. Good. Maybe I would have liked you as a seller. Changed my mind. I wanted this. All right. So everybody good with this piece of it? Go ahead, Jesus.
So this is kind of like, I guess, like a listing. Is this kind of also like with the buyer? So like, you know how we go through that crystallization process?
Mhm.
So maybe like the seller does have a price in mind, or they want information, but like in the subconscious, they don't. So when you have that conversation, something just probably like clicks. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna choose this person.
Yes. Yes, that's exactly right.
Similar, right?
Yes, which essentially that's what this choose me is all about, is that it's getting them to crystallize on it. So good. All right, so next step. Okay, so think of it this way. Kind of how we're going to do this today is we're starting with like this 30,000 foot view, meaning like essentially if you were to just say, give me the shortest, quickest, best presentation, I would say to you, okay, it's choose me, then together we'll choose the price. I mean, that's like the 30,000 foot view of what we're trying to do, okay? So now we're going to start to zoom in just a little bit more. So how we do this, how this whole process works, so we've gone from this simple, just choose me, together we'll choose the price. The way that we're going to actually get this to kind of happen is what we want to do. So there's 3 elements that have to take place on every presentation. First is we've got to connect. So we've got to connect with them. There's got to be a connection. Build rapport would be another way of saying it, okay? So we've got to have that connection or that rapport with them first. Once that happens, then the next step along the way is what we want to do is build value, okay? We're going to create value. We need to create value so that they see the value. See, here's one of the things that, again, back to, and actually I'm going to read to you. Well, no, I won't. I saw something on Facebook the other day that I thought was funny, which doesn't really necessarily apply to this, but I'm going to try to tie it together. So basically what it says is nobody cares, work harder. Meaning like nobody cares about all the stuff, just your excuses and those things, just work a little bit harder. But in terms of this, so back to the value piece. There are so many times where I will hear an agent come in and say, oh yeah, all they wanted was the person with the lowest commission. Well, why would that happen? Why would somebody say, we just want the lowest commission? Who is going to charge us the lowest commission?
They don't see the value of paying more.
Yeah, essentially, if you have not created the value, meaning, like, stop and think for yourself. Are there things that you will pay more for a higher price? So can you give me an example?
Apple customers.
Yeah, me. I'm an Apple customer.
Me too, I'd say, cars, I mean, certain cars that I value is having all the things that I want plus the quality.
Okay, yeah, so because of that, because you see the value, you're willing to spend more money for it, right? See, the same thing happens in terms of you and going on presentations. We don't like it, meaning like that's why I shared that like nobody cares, work harder, is the same concept of this is like we don't want to admit that it's us. We don't want to take responsibility that the problem was me. So when you go on a presentation and the person ends up choosing somebody because they were charging them less, really what they're saying to you is you didn't do a good job of creating enough value for me to see that it was worth spending the money with you. Does that make sense? I mean, we don't like that. We don't want to take response because we don't want it to be, well, I didn't do a good job on my presentation. And again, there is no such thing as a perfect presentation. So like you're never going to go out and be like, oh, I nailed it, it was perfect. If we videoed it, doesn't matter, even this class, if you go back and watch the video, you could probably take thousands of notes on, yeah, Russ shouldn't have said that, shouldn't have done that, I mean, all of us have that. So the same thing's going to happen in your presentation. So don't feel bad, because there's no such thing as perfect. However, you do want to slowly be improving and getting better, but anytime somebody says to you, if they fight you on commission or they list with somebody else for a lower commission or a different price, essentially what they're saying to you is you didn't create enough value for me to want to pay the price for you.
I said that to her, and she said, well, tough luck. This is mine, if you want me.
To the agent you chose, you said what?
She said, I said, I want a commission, and she said,
No.
tough luck.
And you still chose her.
Well, I think that's important because you're showing that you believe in yourself, you believe in your value. And if you're willing to compromise in your value, then you haven't even convinced yourself, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right, yeah. And again, it's one of our objection handlers. What's going to happen then when an offer comes in low? Am I going to be able to stick to my guns and help you fight for your price, or am I going to roll over there too, you know? So as hard as that is, be willing to accept that fact. And why I say that is when you're willing to take the responsibility and accept the fact and say, okay, it was me not creating enough value is the reason I didn't get the listing, then from there you can change and you can fix it. But as long as you are willing or you are letting it be, well, somebody else came in and just cut their commission, then there's no obligation, no requirement to fix it. Meaning you're not going to fix it in your own mind. Does that make sense? So always keep that in mind. So our first objective, we got to connect. We got to connect and build the rapport with them. From there, then we've got to create value. And then third is, all right, I just seen anybody new, close. Okay. The third piece is then close. We got to ask for the business. On that piece, now, in terms of closing, closing is just a natural ending to a good presentation. If you have a good presentation, closing should be easy and natural, okay? So if you're finding that you're struggling with closing, again, go back to I got to look at what is it that I'm doing in terms of my presentation and creating value, okay? So Jesus brought up the needs analysis class, which how many of you have done it? So about half. Okay. Slowly, hands. All but a couple. Okay, so for those that have not, so one of the scripts we use at the end with a buyer at the end of a presentation is like I call it the let me tell you how I work script. At the end of that presentation, the closing is let me tell you how I work. I'm going to go out and look at every home in the market in your price range, but I'm only going to show you the ones that meet your needs. So in my experience, I'm going to have to go look at 10 to find one that will work for you. So what that means is if we're going to look at 3 or 4, I got to preview 30 to 40. I'm willing to do that, provided that during the time we're working together, you'll commit to working exclusively with me. Now, because doing that needs analysis, we've connected, we have created value through how we're doing the connecting and all that. It is a natural ending for them to be like, oh yeah, no problem. Great, I've got an agreement that states that in writing. So the same thing is going to apply here, is really, this is not, shouldn't be hard if we've done these two pieces, okay? So, now, and any questions on that? We good?
So when you have a buyer,
Uh-huh.
you kind of want to be the one to present the houses to them instead of having them get on the MLS and look, right? Or
Well, that would be ideal, but it's never going to happen. So yes, that would be the ideal, is that they're not on there searching, because at the end of our needs analysis, we're going to have really a pretty good, clear picture of what it is they're looking for. But, I mean, just, they're going to get on and do searches at the same time. So you just have to kind of somewhat, when they call and say, hey, I found this house, I want to go see it. You have to go back to, okay, well, when we talked, you said you didn't want a home that faced north. And that house actually faces north. Are you sure you still want to go see it? And if they say yes, then great, I'll go take them and see it. But if they had already told me they didn't want it, I would say, you know what, I saw that one, but I already had excluded it because of blah. That makes sense?
Yeah.
So as much as it would be nice if they didn't, it's never going to happen. They're going to get on and search, because that's just how they are, right? So, okay, so let's drill down again. So there are 6 key pieces then. So again, just we're trying to get them to choose me, then together we'll choose the price. We're getting them to choose me by connecting value, or excuse me, connecting, creating value, and then from there, then we can close. But inside of our presentation, and some of this is going to seem a little bit repetitive, but we're really just drilling down a little deeper on this, is there are 6 key things that you've got to have in every presentation that you do, okay? So the first one is, well, you guys tell me, what are the things that we've got to do on a presentation that's going to help with all of this? And again, some of it may feel a little repetitive. I'm giving you a little bit of a hint. Okay, good. So we got to build rapport. How do we do that?
Show up on time.
Okay, good. Show up on time would be a good idea.
She said she ended up ultimately picking someone that had things in common with her, like kids. So it's a little bit getting to know each other. What do you have in common?
Good. Yeah, so exactly. What we've got to do is build rapport. Now, have you ever connected with somebody, though? So really, this is still part of this connection piece. Have you ever connected with somebody, though, that you maybe didn't have, like the same age kids or whatever? So it is possible. So what I don't want you to do is think like the only way I'm going to be able to do it is to have things in common with them. You can build rapport without having things in common with them. Now, part of this, let me tie that back. Do you remember when I said that Jim Rohn, one of the things that he says is you should work harder on yourself than you do at your job? That's part of where that comes from, is part of just working harder on yourself, becoming the type of person that somebody would want to list their home with. I mean, I love the stuff that Jim Rohn says when he talks about that, is like, if you stop and really said, look, I want to be an agent that sells 100 homes a year, you have to ask yourself, who do I need to become for that to happen? And if you'll ask yourself that question and think about what are the things that people do who list 100 homes a year and become that, then it'll take place. So you can build the rapport without totally having something in common, although it does make it a little easier, right? If we do. So, okay, good. So what else do we have to have in a presentation? What other things would we have to do?
You gotta look professional.
Okay, so can't remember where I threw that under. Let me find it real quick. Oh, okay, good. Yes. So I called that one trust or capable. And I'm going to come back to the build report real quick too in a minute. But let's do this. So they've got to trust you. They've got to trust you and feel capable. Now, how do we get them to do that? One of them that Rob brought up, so A here is show up on time, right? Is how you look.
Maybe eye contact.
Okay, good. Now, on the how you look piece, how important is that?
Various impressions of everything.
Yeah, but here's what's interesting is, again, back to, I think, part of what separates us, Century 21, and why we have been successful, why we are this office specifically is the #1 office in the world, is tied to, you walk in, have any of you been to other real estate offices? And what did it look like, the way the agents dressed compared to what you typically see at most Century 21?
Well, it wasn't so much the way the agents dressed as the actual showroom itself. When I was going through school, I had several brokerages courting me, if you will. And one of them says, well, come out and see us. So I did, and I got there at the appointed time, and it was a storefront office, and there were no lights on in the front of the office.
Wow.
And when I finally went in, because I sat in the car for a long time thinking, this can't be the right
nobody
place,
open.
there's nobody
Yeah.
there.
Mhm.
I finally went up, the door was open, so I walked in, and I'm still kind of looking around, and the guy came out, and he goes, oh yeah, we share our office with this other completely different type of business. And they're not open on Thursdays, and so we can't have our lights on because people think that they're open.
Oh, wow.
And I just went, this is not the place for me.
Check that one off. Yeah,
And
cross
so
it
I
off
went
the
through the perfunctory interview and walked out and went,
Yeah.
so, appearance of the location.
Yeah, the location, and the same, that's, I'll tell you, most agents, you will not see dressed very professionally. They show up to a listing presentation wearing flip-flops, their Tommy Bahama shirt, and think about that type of a first impression that you make on somebody. So yes, that's part of how we're gonna have them trust us and feel that we are capable of doing it. Now, let me come back to on the building report. In terms of building report, UCLA did a study. In this study, what they found is in terms of communication, so remember we said, #1 skill you need to develop is communication. In this study, what they said is 7% of our communication is what? Words, yeah, so the words that we use. Now, even though it's only 7%, that is it is still very crucial in terms of the words that we use, but only 7% really is the words. 38% then would be what?
Body language.
That's actually the 55% is gonna be the body language. So 55% is body language. Great example of that, actually, I was thinking about this one day, and I was actually, last October, I was down at Tony Robbins, and he had this other guy come out and speak at this Tony Robbins event, and the guy came out on stage and people started clapping, and as they're clapping, he goes like this. No, stop. Stop. And what did everybody do because he was doing this? They still kept clapping. He would go, no, stop. So, that's the proof of our body language speaks way louder than the words we use, because he was saying, stop. And every time he's doing this, we're all still just going and clapping, okay? So your body language, the way you are, so back to eye contact and all those type of things are crucial of how, my wife actually can tell, same type of thing. When she's talking to me, she can hear in my body language, if that makes sense, when I'm not paying attention, right? It's clear, okay? 38% then would be what?
Voice.
Good. Yeah, your tone, your pitch, the volume, all of those type of things. So as you go out and communicate with people, we want to make sure that we are working on these pieces. So again, I'm going to keep coming back to this is the type of stuff when I say you need to work harder on yourself than you do on your job. These are the type of things is make sure that you do some role plays and video yourself and pay attention to looking at what is my body language saying? Is it saying I'm bored? Is it saying that I'm interested? Those type of things. Okay, so back on the build report. Okay, what else would we need to have in our presentation? All right, I'll help you out.
Information.
Remember I said we're just drilling down, so some of it's going to be the same? We've got to create value. Now, I'm telling you there's these 6 things, although some of it still is a little bit of a subset of this, if that makes sense, but how do we create value with them? What do we do to create value?
Being prepared. Comps.
Okay.
General knowledge of that area.
Okay, good.
You have some testimonials.
Testimonials, good. Yeah. Did any of you guys attend the class yesterday that we did during base camp? I don't want to blank on her name. Obviously nobody attended, right? Because you're not helping me out on the Belladonna. Belladonna did a class yesterday on that in terms of the 4 personality types and things, which great class. So I would recommend go on to Ustream and watch the class. I'm actually trying to get it uploaded right now as we're doing this class into YouTube so that it's there. But my YouTube connection is not working for some reason. Usually we record this on Ustream, I hit then upload to YouTube and bam, it was done. But the last 3 classes, I've hit it and it won't go. And I click on it and it says, oh, we're still processing it, which like a week later, it's still processing. So there's a problem. But anyway, all right, so create value. We got to create value with them to helping them see, which is really a part. This next one is kind of a subset of this in terms of creating value, but also one of the key pieces. And that is separate yourself. So we've got to separate ourselves from the competition. How do we do that?
By offering a warranty for $75.
Okay, good. There you go. Yeah, that's a great example that Josh used today. One of the things that we can do to separate ourselves from the competition is, one of the things you could say, one of the things I do for my seller is not only every offer you get, the buyer's going to ask you to pay for a home warranty. So you ought to just plan for that right now. But one of the things I do for my sellers that most agents, so in terms of this separate yourself, how you want to word it is most agents versus me. So we would want to say, so most agents are probably going to come in and tell you that a home warranty is a really important thing and that a buyer's going to come in and ask for it. And that's true, that is going to happen. But one of the things that I do for my clients is I offer to give them that almost the same coverage. It's not exact, but it's close. Almost that same coverage during the listing period. Wouldn't that be nice to know? In fact, I even like to call that inspection protection. One of the things I'm going to offer for you is this inspection protection. Now, again, it's not going to cover everything, but a lot of the stuff, if we have that on there, once the inspection happens, let me give you an example. 2 things. Now, again, one of these probably is not really worth spending the $75 for, but it's an example of how if you had this seller coverage. I saw one recently where on the inspection, they came back and said that there was, in the basement was mostly finished. There was a couple rooms that didn't have sheetrock up yet, and there was an outlet on the wall that was live, but there was no, there was a box on the wall, no outlet. The wires were there for the outlet, but the outlet wasn't there, and the wires were live, not capped off. Safety risk. Now, like I said, that one's a very simple, easy fix. You probably wouldn't want to pay an electrician $75 to come out and screw a nut on the end of that, a wire nut, so that it doesn't shock anybody. But that's the type of thing, though, that you could. So the other piece of it, though, was they had a cooktop stove, and one of the burners wasn't working. So again, if you know how to do it and want to do it, great. I don't know what it would cost to get that fixed, but that's something the home warranty would have covered for the seller. If the seller would have just said, hey, home warranty company, come out and fix the burner on the stove. So,
So if there was a whole electrical panel that needed to be replaced,
It's going to be they're going to pay the $75 fee for them to come out, the electrician, and they're going to replace or repair it or whatever the issue is. So back to again this is how we're going to separate ourselves. Now, we all have access to the same tools, but what you essentially want to do is show them my home warranty is better than every other agent's home warranty. Now, is it really better? No, it's just we may be you guys now are more educated on that home warranty than most agents out there. You have the ability now to go in and say, one of the things we can do is get you the same coverage during that. Now, every other agent has that available to them, but they don't know it and they aren't using it. So that's part of what we want to do. The other way we can do this on separate ourselves. Most agents, what do most agents do in terms of photography?
cell phones.
Yeah, most agents are using their iPhone or whatever phone and taking pictures of the house and throwing it on the MLS. What do?
Professional photographers.
We have a professional photographer. So part of how we're gonna separate ourselves is most agents go out and take pictures, and I would just say to the person, Rob, have you spent any time on looking at properties on the MLS? We're role playing if you were a seller.
Yes, I have.
So what have you noticed when you look at pictures?
You know, some of them are either blurry or they're sideways or upside down.
Yeah, and isn't it crazy to think you're gonna pay somebody $12,000 to have blurry photos of your house?
It's ridiculous. I don't want that.
Yeah, that's what most agents do, but not us, or not me. What I do is I have a professional photographer come out, and in fact, once we get to go ahead and tonight and you say, yes, let's do it, see I'm giving a little bit of a subtle close here. Once you say, let's do it, I'm gonna order the photography, so we're gonna get a photographer out here to take the pictures in the next few days, and then we're gonna have actually, when your property hits the MLS, it's gonna already look good. How's that sound?
Sounds great. You
Awesome.
use a professional photographer?
Yeah, so see, so all I'm doing is most agents versus me. Every agent has the ability to do that, but they don't. What about Keybox? How could we use the Keybox better than somebody else?
No clue.
Okay, well, I'll help you out then. One of the things that your Keybox has the ability to do is you can read it and it'll tell you, you can actually even set it up so when somebody opens the Keybox, it will send you an email letting you know the Keybox was just opened and here's who opened it. You can also set up for it to automatically request feedback from the agent. So the moment the agent opens the Keybox itself, and I think it does it 10 minutes, maybe it's a half an hour later, it's somewhere, but after a certain amount of time, it's gonna email them saying, please give us feedback from your showing today. See, most agents don't know that. Did you guys know that? No. For today? See, so how do I separate myself? Most agents don't even know, now I wouldn't say most agents don't know they can do this. I would approach it more as, here's one of the things that my Keybox does. My Keybox actually has the ability to request and all the stuff we just talked about. See, I'm separating myself. So we use a lot of the same tools, but most agents don't know how to use the tools, and I know how to use the tools. So my Keybox is better than theirs. Does that make sense? So that's when we're talking about separating ourselves. All right, what else would we need to have? I gotta go to my notes now. All right. They have to feel safe. Why would that be important?
Because nobody wants to be taken advantage of.
Yeah. So somewhat in this is this trust and capable. This is more about that you're capable of doing it. This is more of that they feel safe that, you know what, yeah, they're not, their intentions aren't bad. They're not trying, they don't care about only a commission, those type of things. Does that make sense? So, and then the final one, remember, some of these things we're just drilling down deeper is close. Again, you gotta ask for the business, okay? So as we are drilling down, so essentially you need to make sure, and a good thing to do after every presentation that you go on, is to take a step back and really ask yourselves, how did I do on building rapport with the people? Did I do a good job? Okay, so in terms of what, remember back here on value, I said a lot of times what happens is we come back saying, well, they were looking for the lowest commission. No, what you're not telling yourself the truth on is you didn't create enough value. So I want to look at this and say, did I build rapport? Did I have a connection with them? Okay, what could have I done better? What would I do different? Trust. Did they trust me? Did I show up on time? Did I look good? Did I do all of those things to help them trust me? And did I show that I was capable? Now again, part of that showing you're capable is going to be during this separate yourself. But 3, did I create value? Did I create value for them to feel like there was value? Did you have a question?
Yeah, so if you were talking with a customer and they have you scheduled and then they have 2 other people coming in after you, would you want to reschedule to be the last person?
You know, there's different lines of thinking, and even myself, I go back and forth on that in terms of that. So ideally, for me personally, I'd like to be first and last. It's kind of the ideal situation.
If you know that they're going to talk to other people.
Well, if you know they're gonna talk to other people, ideally it would be best to be last. It just kinda depends on the person though. It's hard to answer that because I've seen it go both ways. I've seen where somebody shows up and knocks it out of the park and gets the listing right then, so it's like, I should have been first. But I've also seen there are some people that would just say, nope, no matter what, I'm not signing with anybody until I've talked to all three. So Pat, I was gonna say, before I even could say her name, I already know, you would wanna be last with Pat, would have been your best chance. But there are other people that out there on the first one, if you go through and you do this, you connect, you create value and you close, that would say yes. And had happened before, where I'll call Rob and say, hey Rob, I just wanna let you know, I listed Pat's house, so she asked me to call and let you know not to come to her appointment today. She feels really bad. So, and I would tell Pat, I'll do that so you don't have to do it, because I know you don't wanna make that call, I'll do it. And be like, hey Rob, guess what buddy, did it to you again. You know what I mean? So, there's different lines of thinking and honestly, just being, it kinda depends on the person. With Pat, I would have said, you gotta be probably last.
It wouldn't have mattered.
You wouldn't have chose me anyway?
Evaluate, but you collected the information, then you evaluate.
Oh, I see what you're saying,
would
gotcha.
call-
So for her, it wouldn't have mattered because she wouldn't have listed it first or last, she would have waited, so.
She listed with me instead.
She what? She lives with Rob instead, yeah. Okay, so we gotta do that, we gotta separate ourselves, we gotta help them feel comfortable, and then we close. And as long as we do all those things, we're gonna be good. So, is that where I was? I feel like I'm lost off of where I was. That's where I was.
Good. On the flip side, Russ, if you don't mind, how do you know when to walk away from a deal? When it's a bad situation, Because you need to choose them as well, correct?
Yeah, so essentially I like to call that the draw the line in the sand. You need to have somewhere that and there's not gonna be a right answer for everybody, but you've gotta just draw a line in the sand in terms of here's when I'm willing to go on an appointment, here's where I'm not, or when I'm at the appointment. Let me think of an example. So here's probably an example. Let's say that they really wanted to list $50,000 higher than what really the property is going to sell for, and they were adamant about it. What you've got to, for me, I'm willing, as long as they will say, if it doesn't sell within 3 weeks, we can adjust the price down 10%, then great, I'll take the listing. But if they say, nope, it's this price no matter what, and I feel like it's overpriced, then no, I'm gonna walk from it. So ultimately, you just kind of decide for yourself, here's when I'm willing to take it and here's when I'm not, and then just draw that line in the sand and be willing to walk away versus stick around for it.
So as soon as you feel like you're wasting your time,
Then it's probably time to
that needs to.
fold it up and say, appreciate your time and good luck. Let me refer you to my friend Jesus. He specializes in overpriced listings. No, I'm just teasing. I'm teasing. All right, so everybody, we good with all that? Okay, so let's jump into, let me clear some of this off here. Let's jump into the actual listing presentation then, okay? And every time I do this, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna make sure to leave time this time for us to do some practice with this. And I can see already we're probably not, that's not one, come on. We're probably not gonna get a whole lot, but we'll try. All right. So when you get there, on your presentation, the first thing you should be doing on a listing presentation is, and you guys have probably seen this before, but it's a good reminder, tap. What does the T stand for? Okay, well, I'm glad we're doing it then. First thing you want to do is thank them. So as soon as you get in, when you're walking into their home, you want to be hey, thank you for taking the time to meet with me. As you're sitting down to have your presentation with them, we want to start with this tap. We want to thank, we want to acknowledge them. So we want to acknowledge them for taking the time to meet with you, for how clean the house is, for something. Acknowledge, I want to thank you. So I'm going to thank you. Thanks for taking the time to sit down and talk to me. You have such a beautiful home and you've taken such good care of it. Okay? And then the last is promise. we want to promise them something, okay? So thanks for taking the time to meet with me. You have such a beautiful home. You know, I can see how well you've cared for it during this, 10 years that you've owned the home. And what I promise you is at the end of my presentation tonight, you're going to have some really good and valuable information whether or not we end up working together, okay? And then the other thing that was kind of be a sub-note on this, you just have to kind of decide on for yourself, is if you want to add some humor to it. I mean, if that's who you are, great. If you don't want to have any humor, that's okay too. So I just want to thank you for taking the time to meet with me. You've done such a beautiful job with your home, and I can see how much you've cared for it. And I promise you that at the end of my presentation, after 4 hours of being with me, you're going to have some really good information to help you in getting your home sold. And they're going to go 4 hours, So whatever, just some type of a humor thing with it, okay? So we always want to start with that, with thanking, acknowledging, promise. That's going to help us with this building rapport and connecting and those type of things, okay? Once we have done that, then the next step is along the way. So we could actually even call this up here the intro. So your introduction is going to just be this thank, acknowledge, and promise, okay? So that's going to be, then second, so it's number one. Number two, then is going to be what we call your game plan, okay? Now, sometimes agents get a little confused on this piece of it, because what we're going to do here on this game plan piece, this game plan is for us to tell them what we're going to do. So think of it as we're going to tell them what we are going to do, then we're going to actually do it, and then we can tell them what we did after. But this is the telling them what we're going to do, okay? So think of it as a roadmap or whatever. So we're giving them this is what's going to happen tonight in my presentation, okay? So under this game plan, what we're going to do is we're going to talk to them about what they need, want, and expect. So, and I'll show you what this looks like in just a second here. Second to that is so essentially what we want to let them know is the first thing we're going to do is talk about your needs, your wants, and your expectations. Then after that, we're going to call it for them marketing. But essentially, this is where we're going to talk about what we're going to do in terms of getting the home sold. We could also call that our plan of action. Okay? Third is we're going to talk to them about the market. So the first one is more marketing. This one is then next is going to be the market. Now, when I say the market, we're going to have subcategories under here of kind of more like the overall, the global market. So we could even say local market, what's going on. Under this market, we'll also talk to them about our pricing strategy. And then C is going to be the CMA. Okay? So first we're going to talk to them about needs, wants, and expectations. Then we'll go through this plan of action or our marketing. Then we're going to talk about the real estate market in terms of the local market, what's going on. We'll get into what's going on in their own area down here, but I'll talk about our pricing strategy as well. And then fourth is going to be to close. Okay? Now, let me show you what that looks like. Okay? So, thanks for taking the time to meet with me. You've done a great job with your home, or I'm going to acknowledge them by saying, my phone is like ringing every 2 minutes. Let me see if it's like the same person every time. No, it's not. Okay. So thanks for taking the time to meet with me. I know you've probably got better things that you would rather be doing than sitting down and spending the next 4 hours with me, but I promise you that I'm going to give you some great information that's going to help you whether or not we end up working together. So what we're going to do this evening or this afternoon is I'm going to first ask you some questions to find out what you need, what you want, and ultimately what you're going to expect from me as your agent, and also letting you know what I would expect from you as a seller. Then after that, we're gonna talk about what we do in terms of getting homes sold. I'm gonna talk to you in terms of what I do and what Century 21 does in terms of getting homes sold. After we've done that, then we're gonna talk about the market. And let me finish this up. We're gonna talk about the real estate market and what's going on in the market, how important pricing is, and specifically what the price of your home ought to be. And then after that, providing you're comfortable with everything we've talked about and you're happy with it, then I'm gonna ask you to sign some paperwork so that we can get your home sold. How does that sound? Go ahead, Chris.
Can you go more into detail on that, like what you would do as opposed to other agents?
On this piece, this?
Yeah.
Yep. But hold on to it for a minute, because I mean we touched on it a little bit, but at this, yes, we're gonna get to that, but I would first want to go through. I'm gonna go through it in step order. Does that make sense? So this part here, I'm not actually asking them what they need, want, and expect right now. All I'm doing is telling them, here's the plan. Here's what we're going to be doing. Does that make sense? So I'm acknowledging, promising, then I'm going to say to them, okay, let me tell you what we're going to do. And it's where we're going to spend the next 25, 30 minutes, okay, is I want to hear about what you need, want, you expect, and what I would expect from you. So I want to know what you expect of me and me expect of you. Then we're going to talk about what we do and what I do to get homes sold. Then after that, we'll go through and we'll talk about the market and what's going on with the real estate market and about pricing and those type of things about your home. And then after that, providing you're comfortable with everything we've talked about, I'm going to ask you then to sign a contract. Sound good? They'll say yes. So now then we can go over here to number 3. So this was number 2, is we're explaining the game plan. Then number 3 is when we're going to do this piece here, okay? So we call that questions, okay? So I'm going to now then jump into actually doing this piece. So here's kind of the game plan. Then we're going to actually go through and do it. So number 3 is actually this. So you need to have, I think, your first 3 questions that you would ask them written down, okay? And I'll give you some ideas on that. Let me get to that picture. Okay, so here's the one I'll give you. What George says that he likes to use as his very first question is, what are you ultimately trying to accomplish? So your first question to ask them as you're going through this piece of it, this needs, wants, and expectations, is I would want to just say, okay, Mike, what is it that you are wanting, or excuse me, Mike, have you ultimately decided, what have you, can you remember the question? I'll just read it. What are you ultimately trying to accomplish, Mike? And then he's going to start just telling me whatever it is that he's.
Ultimately, we want to move into a bigger house because this one's too small for us.
Okay, good. So see, that should be my first question. Now, depending on how he answers that, my next question may go totally off in a different direction because of what he's saying. If he's saying we're going to lose the house or something, I'm going to start probably asking, okay, so tell me, what type of time frame are you looking at? Blah blah blah, that type of stuff. Okay. Some other questions that you could have, but you should at least have 3 that you're going to ask, and then ideally though, I'm going to then take whatever he's giving and start to drill down and ask more questions about it. That's where now the needs analysis class comes into play, okay? So another one, have you made the decision to sell your home? Could be another one. Now I'm not saying these are exclusive. I'm going to give you a bunch of different ones. So you have a little bit of a quandary. No? Okay. So have you made the decision to sell your home? Meaning, like, have they decided they are selling the home, or are they still just trying to decide if they're going to be selling or not? Okay. Do you absolutely have to sell the home? Could be another question you could ask. But ultimately, let me give you the things you want to be asking questions about. Is there's 3, potentially 4 things that you could really be asking questions of. And think of it this way, in terms of, call it camp, okay? Camp. The things we want to be talking to them and asking questions about is going to be condition type questions, the ability questions about their ability to sell the home, their motivation, and why am I going on blank on pricing? The P is price. Talking about pricing, okay? Let me make sure that that's right. I'm telling you right. Yeah, price. Okay, so we want to be asking questions about that. Now, let me give you, if you're not sure of other questions to ask, inside of your script book, on page, I wanna say it's 82, but I might be wrong. No, it's not 82. 79. Page 79, 22 questions that you can ask for a listing presentation. So as you work on this questions piece, go through these 22 questions in here and figure out what are the ones you like the best that you want to use. But you need to at least have 3 that you're going to ask, okay, that ready to go when you get there. So you're not like, but at least have 3 that you're ready to go on. But there's 22 different ones that you could use in here, okay, on page 79 of your script, okay? All right. Then after we've gone through this piece, so we've asked questions. This, honestly, in my opinion, this is where a majority of your time ought to be spent. So if I'm going to be there for, the next 25, 30 minutes, 40, whatever, majority of the time ought to be on this, asking questions. Because if you'll do that, would you rather take an open book test or a closed book test? We're going to take one. No, I'm just teasing. I mean, obviously, right? You'd rather be closed? Why?
They might be better at finding the page, and I might be better at remembering what was on that page.
Okay, but you'd have to have at least read the book first, right?
The grading scale would be harder if it's an open book as opposed to a closed book.
Okay. So, but in terms of going out on a listing presentation, would you rather try to guess what they want or have them tell you what they really want? Obviously, right? This is where that takes place. If you'll ask the questions, they'll tell you all of the things of how they want to be taken care of, how you can help them in getting their home sold, what's most important to them, okay? Now, the next thing then, once we've gone through that, then we can go to the next piece, this plan of action, okay? So this plan of action is where we're now going to separate ourselves, okay? This is where that separation takes place. Now, on this plan of action, so this is more what your question was, Chris. What are we going to do? How do we separate ourselves with all these tools and things? Well, it depends. So here's the challenge of teaching this to you guys right now is what I'm going to do here depends on this. So it kind of depends on what questions how they've answered the questions I've asked in terms of timing, how quickly, what's most important to them about an agent, what do they expect you to do, what are the things that they have based on what they've set up here. But here's what I'll tell you, actually, this is what's interesting to me. What I have learned over time is most of the time, the things that you will end up, most of the time, if you do this piece right, you're not going to have to spend hardly any time at all right here. Because what happens is we as agents feel like I got to show up with this great listing presentation. When I say a listing presentation, I mean like stuff. I got to have like a book to show up with, or I got to have a PowerPoint presentation that I can show them. You only need that stuff and what typically people want here if you don't do a good job at this. If you do a good job at this, they're going to tell you exactly. And here's what's interesting. My experience is most of the time when you ask these questions here, what you end up landing on is it's usually about family, it's about loss or making money or something. It's not generally about like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do to get my home sold? It's more really of, if you've done a good job here, remember, and I want to tie it back to, it's them filling this, creating value, I guess, but separating yourself, which you do a lot of that stuff up here just by asking questions, and then they feel safe as well. See, if you do this right, at the end of you asking the questions, they're going to just feel like you are the person to help them because you heard what's important to them. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Okay, so ultimately, this plan of action piece, so to answer your question, Chris, if I do this right, this is going to be very, very simple because they've already told me the answers. Does that mean, that's where I was coming from in the open book or closed book test. They've given you all the answers to the quiz. This is what you got to do. And then from here, I'm just going to tell them now how I'm going to do it. So let me give you an example. let's say it was an expired listing. We're out on an expired listing, okay? And I've asked them questions and, tell me what'd your last agent do? So any of you been an expired listing, like you had your own home and it didn't sell? You did?
Yeah.
Okay, so go back to, let's say that I'm out, the next agent you're gonna choose. So, and I said to you, so tell me about, and be real on this. Tell me about your past experience with the other agent.
I basically did not have any communication. Once we met.
I knew that's what was gonna come up, by the way, but go ahead.
Once we met, that was the first and last time, and then
Wow,
I had a hard time like reaching them and following up.
that's crazy. So what did they do that you liked best?
They were nice.
Oh, really? Okay, good.
Bryson
So what do you think they should have done then?
just followed up and
See, this is where all of a sudden I'm getting the answers to what I need to do. So what do you think they should have done? Be real. What do you
and
think they
I've
should
been
have
a little bit more upfront. Part of it was because my mom was really difficult and refusing to listen to price point and only setting hers, and I really needed them to make her understand so that we could really sell the home and get it done.
Okay. So what did she just say? What did she just tell me? If I'm going to be the agent, what do I need to do?
Communicate, follow up.
Communicate, and what else did she say?
Price rent.
You might need some sales.
Making sure that they understand in terms of the pricing. See, she's just given me the answers to how I can get the listing, right? So that's what we want to be doing up in here. See, now based on that, so now we're short circuiting this, okay? But so I've just done that with her. Let's say that I've spent 15 minutes. We only did 15 seconds. But so based on that, let me tell you how I'm going to work with you then, Anakin. So what I'm going to do is once we sign the contract tonight and we get your home on the market, I'm going to let you know. First thing, we'll be in contact about the photographs coming out. So I'm going to call and get that ordered, and I'm going to let you know when they're coming out. Once they're done and they're on and the property hits the market, I'm going to make sure that you know that it's now on the market. Then one of the other things that I do for my clients that most agents don't do, remember, I'm back to this, most agents versus me. Unfortunately, there are a lot of agents that go out and do exactly what you just said. They go out, all they want is the listing. In fact, I had an agent in my office that I worked with years ago that he actually even told me, look, if it's going to sell when I put it on the market, and if it's not, it's not, so it doesn't really matter if I call him anymore. You see, I don't work that way. That's not how I do things. So one of the things I do with my clients is I call them and you pick the day, whatever day it is. So I'll just say since it's Thursday, I call them every Friday at 10 o'clock. So what's the best number to reach you on Friday at 10 o'clock? And then she's going to give me a number. Okay, now that I know that, here's what you can plan on for me and what I'll promise you that I'll do. I know you had such a horrible experience with those people. What I'm going to do is I'm going to promise you that I will call you every Friday. So by the end of the day on Friday, you will have heard from me. Typically, it's going to be at about 10 o'clock, between 10 and noon, somewhere in that range. But every now and then, we may have a class or something going on. It might be later. But by the end of the day, Friday, you will hear from me. If you ever don't, now, if you pick up, I'm going to let you know everything that's going on. If you don't, I'll leave you a detailed message of what's happened during the last week, what we've done, what's gone on, and really even what I think we need to do next. So every Friday you can plan on that. If that doesn't happen, I give you permission that you could call me up and call my broker and say, I want a different agent because he didn't follow through. So that's what I'm going to do to help you. But not only that, I actually want to schedule an appointment right now before I leave tonight to sit down with you a month from now. So if we don't have an offer a month from now, we need to be talking about what we need to change. So I want to schedule an appointment so you can already know we're going to be sitting down. And when I know I got to sit down face to face with you, there's that accountability. So you know I'm going to be working because I know I'm going to have to sit down and answer to what I've done in the last month. How does that sound?
That sounds great.
See, that's how I'm going to do this plan of action. So Chris, I just want to listen to what they said here, and then I'm going to tell them how I'm going to take care of that problem so it doesn't happen for them again. Does that make sense? So if they were concerned about it and wanted to know more details, let's say up here she had said, I want to know what makes you different. Then I'm going to come into what we talked about. My key box is different. Let me tell you how. My pictures are different. Let me tell you how. My communication's different. Let me tell you how. All of these things that we've just been talking about, you're just going to say, here's how I'm different than everybody else. That make sense? Okay. So that's what this plan of action is going to be. The plan of action is, how are we going to go about it? What are we gonna do, okay? Then, now, and this is crucial, the next step then here is this market stuff down here. So number 5 is gonna be market. So I said local here, think of it as, oops, stats is where I'm gonna cover stats with them, pricing, and CMA. Now, do you remember what I said though? Remember the choose me, then together we'll choose the price? Isn't this really choose the price? So there's something I probably should do after this before I get to here. And here's where it is. So here's where this separation happens of this. Now I'm going to find out if they've chosen me, okay? So once we go through this, I've answered now the questions here in this plan of action based on what they've told me up here. So I gave you an example of that, of what did you not like before? What would you expect from the agent? She told me, I said, here's how I'm going to do it. So before I go into market, now I want to check in to find out, am I the guy? Okay, so I'm going to say, okay, and based on everything we've talked about here, is there anything else that you feel like you need to know about me or Century 21 that would help you in getting your home sold?
No, I think you covered it.
Okay, so that's the first thing I'm looking for is no, I think you've covered it. Okay, so then just hypothetically, if you had to rate me between 1 and 10 of us working together today, what would you, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being like it's never going to happen and 10 being yeah, absolutely it's going to happen, where would you say we're at between 1 and 10?
10?
Perfect. That's what I'm looking for. If she says 10, great. I'm ready to go then. We'll go to this.
What if they said like 7?
Okay, so let's do it. So let's replay it and say a 7, 8 or something. So scale of 1 to 10, where would you say that we're at?
6. I'm leaning. I'm not quite there yet.
Okay, 6. So help me understand what would have to happen for us to be at a 10.
I'd have to know that it's reasonable to expect a good time frame that things can be done, possibly.
Okay, so and then I would say, well, say more about that. And now I'm going to just jump. So what's going to happen is before I jump into this market and stuff, right in here is I'm going to have her, rate me 1 and 10 of us working together. If she says anything less than a 10, I'm basically jumping back up into here of asking more questions. So help me understand why. I mean, because I assume you wouldn't want a B- agent out working for you, right? So we want to make sure that we're all the way there. So what else would you need to know? What would have to happen for us to be at a 10? And I'm just looking for what has to happen, okay? But anything less than a 10, I'm not going to go into this. I want to get to a 10 first. Do you want to say something, Ryan? You look like you do.
No.
Oh, you sure?
I was just thinking how applicable that is, not just real estate, but in whatever I'm trying to sell myself.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So ultimately, I want to get this 1 to 10 and don't go on. Now, there are some people that probably are never going to say a 10, meaning it's a 9. Well, what would that's Pat, right? So let's role play it, Pat. So what would have to happen for us to be to a 10?
It would never happen because there's no absolute worst and no absolute best.
Okay.
9 is as good as you're gonna get.
So 9's as good as I'm going to get. And you said we were at 9?
Well, we were at a 7.
We're at a 7. So what would have to happen for me to become a 9? So see, I'm just going to, if she said, I'm never going to say you would be at a 10, great. Well, what would happen to be for a 9? I mean, I ultimately what I want to get to is, do you feel I can sell your home? That'd be another great way of saying it, if they were stuck on it. So Pat, do you feel I could sell your home? You feel I could help you get the job done?
Yes.
You do? Okay, great. Then let's start talking. So my assumption is then if we can agree on a price, we're good to go.
After I evaluate it.
Okay. So tell me what that means. See, I'm just going to ask more questions. So how long would you need to evaluate it?
A couple of days.
Couple days. Okay. So if you feel comfortable with everything we can talk about on price, and a couple days later you've evaluated and you're good, you'll list with me.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm just going to land on whatever it is. Okay. So now that we've agreed to that, now I'll go into the market. So now I'm going to start talking about the market, and I'm going to get into the stats. Let me tell you what's going on in the market today. So how many homes are for sale in Salt Lake County right now? Any ideas?
25, 6 6?
29.
We're higher than
3,000.
No, it's lower than 3,000. I looked the other day and it was exactly 2,700. I haven't looked for the last few days. Have you looked at it, Jason, at all? So it was at 27. Yeah, well, we got as low. The lowest I personally saw was like 2,380, and we're now at 2,700. So it's starting to increase. Now, here's the funny thing is that's still like incredibly low. I mean, like I have never seen under 3,000 until this year, ever. So that's
3,000 you said?
yeah. And I tracked it for weekly since 2006. In 2006, it was around 3,000, but since then we got all the way up to almost 9,000 homes for sale, and we're down now. We're at like 20. So even still, we're at an incredibly low number. But so that's the kind of thing I would be going through with them and talking about. Then pricing. What would I want to say to them in terms of pricing? Okay, I'm going to teach them now our pricing strategy. What does that look like? So our pricing strategy is what I would want to be saying to them is, if we have no offers and no showings, what do you guys think that would mean? Yeah, so I would want to ask them, if you are getting no showings and no offers, I would ask them, what do you think that would mean? And they're going to say whatever it is they say. But we want to get them to self-discover that it's probably one of two things. It's either the price or the condition that's causing it, right? And really, ultimately, even the condition still boils down to, if they're not willing to change it, if they're not willing to remodel their kitchen and put in a new kitchen, then it's price, right? So ultimately, it's going to come down to price. So what we want to tell them is no offers, no showings. We are 7 to 10% at least 7% overpriced. Meaning we might be 20%. Who knows? The only way we're going to find out though is put it on the market. So no offers, no showings. We're at least 7 to 10% overpriced. Could be higher than that. Okay. If we get some showings, no offers, then what? 5 to 7% overpriced. How do we know that? Okay, you guys are very interactive all of a sudden. You ready to go? So yeah, if you go on the MLS and look under the statistics, you can look at sales per month. What you'll notice is pretty much every home sells somewhere between 3 and 4 on a monthly basis. It's generally going to be around 3% of what their original list price was.
3% lower.
Well, it won't be less than that. That's probably the way of saying it. The average or the median is not going to be less than that. So meaning like if you took last month all the homes that sold, on average, they're going to be within 3% of, and actually in our current market, it's more like 99%. I mean, they're selling, obviously, most of them right at what their list price is, right? Because of where the things are at. So what we know, that's how we know if we're getting some showings but no offers, we're getting close, but we're not close enough. Meaning, most buyers are not going to go in and offer 5 or 10% less than what the seller is asking on their home. There are a few, there are some exceptions, but as a general rule, that does not happen. And if it does, I mean, if the seller was willing to take 10% less on their home, why would they be priced where they're at? They would just, meaning if somebody came in and gave them an offer right then. So it just doesn't happen. You're almost always going to be somewhere between right at where they're at and about 3%. So that's why we know if they're higher than that, we got to come down at least 5%. Because if we don't, we're probably still not going to get anything. Does that make sense? So I would want to just coach them on this. We want to future pace them. We want to let them know, look, when we put your home on the market, based on what we know here on the stats and things, the market's really strong right now. So if we put your home on the market and we get no offers and no showings, that's the market's way. The market speaks in this encrypted language, and I'm going to interpret it for you. So that's a great way of explaining it to them, is my job is to be the interpreter of the market. It speaks in this encrypted language, where if we have no showings and no offers, interpreting that into your language means you're overpriced by probably 7 to 10% and maybe more. If we're getting some showings but no offers, then we're somewhere between 5 and 7% we need to come down. Does that make sense? You guys following me? Are you just tired? all of a sudden not participating. Okay, so I would want to explain that to them. Then I'd say, now let's look at the CMA for your particular house. And I'm going to go through the CMA of, here's how this home is similar to yours. Here's how this one's different than yours. This one's better. This one's worse. Whatever. To land on kind of where we think price ought to be. Okay. Any questions on any of that?
So, would you say that it would be better, because we had a listing in Clinton, and we said that the house was gonna sell for like $185, and there was another house similar to it, not far away, they listed at $179. The people we listed with were insistent that they started at $205. And so now we're under contract at $183, and the other house sold for $189.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think it's better to be lower than higher, so you
Yes.
get more traffic?
Yes. Well, because you just proved it.
Yeah, that's
longer-
right.
The longer a home sits on, this is what the price of a house does, is it does something, and this is exaggerated, but it does something like this, meaning like about 3 weeks on the market is kind of your, once you hit that point, the price is starting to come down on that home. And I have done it before where I've gone in and told a seller, similar to what you're saying, where I went in and told the seller, your home is worth $385 and they wanted to list it at $400. And I said, we can do that if you want, but we got to adjust really quick. So 3 weeks later, we adjusted it from $400 to $385. The problem was 3 weeks later now, the price had dropped down to here. So we were now here where I thought the top of the market was at $385. On that day, they said, okay, we can go there. And I said, well, the problem is it's now worth $350. This was during the market, the decline in the market. And I said, the problem is it's now worth $350. Guess what price they wanted to list it at? $385 still. So we put it at $385, and a month goes by, and I went out to see them again a month later, and they said, okay, we're ready to go to $350. And I said, well, here's the problem. The market's now at $335. See, we were chasing it down. And they finally got it at that point, and we dropped it now instead of, actually I take that back. They wanted to stop it, this one was $375, then it went to $350 here. But they finally got it here. I told them on the $350, I said to them, if we wait another month, based on what's happening, it's gonna be $335. They said, great, drop it to $350, and we did, and then it sold.
If they had listened to you, they would have made 30 extra.
See, that's the sad thing is, had they listened back here, so when you say, is it better to be lower and higher? Absolutely. If we had listed it at $385, it would have sold that month at $385, I'm sure of it. But because we were at $400, we chased it all the way down. They ended up getting $347, I think, is what their final was. But and a month later, I looked, and we would have had to be $335. So helping them understand the pricing and how that kind of works is
that part of the market stats? It's just this is the way the market's moving, so
Mhm.
this is how we.
yeah, that's where you would do some of this. So depending on what is going on, but yeah, I mean, but I don't know. Anything you want to add, Jason, to any of that? Or you're not really listening, or?
No, I was listening.
Okay.
No, that's good.
Okay, I just didn't want if I was forgetting.
I think that's the biggest battle you have to fight with a seller is when they see other homes in the neighborhood selling at a specific price and you're telling them it's less than that, we have a tendency to wanna just take the listing based on what they're saying, so we would take it at 410. But we're actually doing them more damage by not being strong in where we see it. So it's important to preview properties and do market analysis so you know where that value is.
Yeah, and it's very similar to what you just said. If you had listed at 185 to begin with, it probably would be would have been under contract quickly at 185, and instead now you're 183. I mean, perfect example of to me why you do that. Okay, so then the final thing, once we've gone through that, is then we're just going to close. Okay. So based on that, and we've now come to an agreement on the price. So as we're doing the CMA, we're coming to, hey, so based on that, it looks like, Chris, the price of your home really, for us to get it sold in the time frame that you were telling me about you wanted here, 185 is where we need to price it. How does that sound to you?
Sounds good.
So 185 sounds good? Okay, great. All we need to do now then is take care of some paperwork. How did you spell your last name? Write it out. Okay, there you go. Okay. So some of the other things that we'll work on more, and if you guys will remind me, then is we'll get into some of the objections and things on some of the closing, meaning and ways to handle some of the different closes on that. So anyway, what questions? You all ready to go do some listings then? Okay, so good. Here's what your assignment is then. I want you to get with somebody, whether it's somebody here in the class or you find a friend, which actually, honestly, guys, let me tell you something. I think this is one of the best kept secrets in terms of for new agents. I think you ought to call some of the people in your SOI and say, I just spent 2 hours in a class learning some stuff and I need somebody to practice it with. Would you be willing to pretend to be a seller for me? And then go do this. Take them through it. Practice with them. What do you think would happen if you did that? If you called 5 people out of your SOI today and said, hey, I don't know if you heard, but I got my license, or if they know you did, I got my real estate license, I know you know that, and I'm really learning some good stuff at class. At least just say that, even if you don't think it's true, for my benefit, okay? I'm learning some great stuff, and I want to practice it. They want me to practice it on some people. Would you be willing to sit down and spend, half an hour or 45 minutes and let me practice it on you? What do you think would happen if you sat down and you took them through this?
They'll forever remember that you're doing it.
Yeah, number one, they're going to remember from then on you're an agent. But what else is going to come from that? Yeah, honestly, I think if you will do that, if you'll call 5 people from your SOI, you'll find a deal. You will find a deal, whether it's them at the end of this going, hey, based on, and in fact, I mean, seriously, like put together a CMA for them on their house if they own one. Put together a CMA for them and sit down and go through it, practice it. It's a great way to practice. So whether at the end of this they say, you know what, actually we've been thinking of selling our house and I really like what you had to say, or they may just say, wow, that was pretty cool, or they may say whatever. But at the end of that you can say, well, so who else do you know, or who do you know that from your sphere of people you know that I should be talking to, that I could help with doing something like this? If you will call 5 people and do that, you'll find a deal. And if you don't, Jason will give you one. I'm just teasing. Jason will go find you one. No, I'm teasing.
I'll give you 5 names to call.
Yeah. Which actually, on that too, actually, if you, I mentioned yesterday's class, the base camp that, I went blank on her name again. Belladonna, thank you. That Belladonna did. Jason actually did the after morning ascent, the broker training today. It was awesome too, by the way. So, did you record it?
I think it is recorded.
Now that I shouldn't have brought it up if it wasn't.
No, I think it was recorded. It was having some issues, so I don't know.
So check it out though, because what he did was good.
I did say save.
Because what he did today for that was really, really good too. Just talking about expired listings and stuff. So it was awesome. So, okay, well, thanks for being here. Go practice. Go get some listings, and if you go and do this, what I said, 5 people. Report back to me when you get the lead, because I want to hear about it. If you don't get a lead, don't tell me. No. You can report back to me that too if you want. Then next time I'll say, call 6 people. You will get. So, oh, actually, yeah, thank you. Before you leave, let me tell you guys, everything that I just covered starts on page 75 in your book. So page 75 has all of this. So 75, 76, all of everything that we talked about today, you can go back through and review, and it's got other questions and stuff in there, like we said. And the pricing strategies on page 81. So everything is right there in your book. Okay? Have a good one. See y'all on Tuesday for, I don't remember what class we're doing. And Jason's going to be doing Thursday, right?
That's 2 hours on Thursday, right?
Yeah. Well, that's however long you take it to be.
You'll get me for Thursday.
Yeah, you get Jason for Thursday. Technology is on Tuesday.
So they're going to have a signature.
Yeah, it's somewhere out there. You know where the clipboard ended up?
She can send it to this up. And then,
Alright, coach.
Okay.
Part of my strategy was to
Okay.
A, how do I do that? B, I found 2 that hadn't been gobbled up. Would you go look at one of them with me or both of them and say, yes, no, do this, don't do that? One of them,
Yeah. I have to leave today, and then tomorrow, depending on how tomorrow goes, I got jury duty tomorrow, so if I end, they told me.
never call.
I know.
It's Utah.
So depending on how long I am tomorrow, I could potentially do it, but I just don't know how long I'll be tomorrow, so, but
One's in Kearns and one's in Rose Park.
So
It's Hoffman
Hoffman Heights,
Mhm. It looks
I think
huge.
I've knocked on every door in Hoffman Heights.
Really? It's awful.
I loved door knocking that area when I first started, loved it, cause those things would sell like that, so. Well, yeah, I agree, I would never live there, but I loved listing them because they sold so fast. But, what's the price on the one Hoffman Heights? I probably can give you an idea without even.
Well, I've got the thing if you wanna look on the computer. 137.
Ooh, that sounds high.
Does it?
I mean, well, just initially we'd have to look at.
1,400 square feet.
Yeah,
Do you want me to pull it up?
yeah, real quick if you can, I just need to leave in 5 minutes.